so what do I actually have here? So I have 3 accounts. I actually don't care about the online profiles anymore. I'll go ahead and delete those. And so what I've got here, let's go take a closer look. I've got 3 different accounts. One's a commercial account for Bob's Surf and Snow Shop. One is Robert Jones, and one is Elizabeth Larson. So where do these folks live? Go back to the map. And what we can see is that Elizabeth Larson lives here in Maine. Bob's Surf and Snow Shop and Robert Jones actually share an address in Beverly Hills. So maybe, you know, Robert owns Bob's Surf and Snow Shop, could be. Maybe they're total fronts. We don't actually know. So let's see how these folks are connected sort of via accounts. So, and here what we're seeing is the links between the accounts are actual events that are happening. They're transactions that are being initiated by this person. And these really fat lines are the ones that sort of have the most events, but they're connected to these admin accounts, which has something to do with how the bank stores its data. It's like administrative access to the account. I can ignore them because I know that they're not actually useful. And this is something that you run into when you're doing these sort of real world things, is there's all these overloaded fields that you run into databases, and you can't really program your way around them sometimes, but you know what? If you just teach people to deal with it, they're like, oh, I'll just delete it. Hey, look, I can continue my work, right? And sometimes the best way to solve problems is to just teach humans to work around it, right? So here I have some sort of network of accounts. I can kind of arrange them to see what's going on here. I have Bob's Surf and Snow Shop. They have some sort of business non-interest checking account, but it may be interesting. Here we have Bob. He has a personal checking account. There's some sort of joint account between Elizabeth Larson and Robert Jones, which wasn't actually apparent from looking. They don't share a last name. They don't live in the same place. Maybe they're divorced. Maybe that's how they move child support. Maybe they're brother and sister, and she changed her name when she got married. You don't know. That in itself isn't all that useful. So what we really need to understand is actually not only how these accounts are connected and what the transactions are between them, but sort of the next order of effects, right? So let's grab these accounts and see what they're connected to. And what comes out is actually 3 different events in the bank of, or 3 different, accounts that are all in the Bank of China. And we can use sort of a handy dandy helper here. Let's see. To lay this out to make it much easier to see what's going on. So let's say, let's specify the top nodes. Start with the people. This is what happens when you let front-end or back-end engineers use the product, right? There we go. Okay, so what we can do now is actually turn on a visualization that'll show us how money is flowing between the accounts. And let's get this all zoomed in. Okay, so what we can see is that all of the money appears to be coming from this account. Right? Got that right? Yeah. And that's a personal home equity line of credit. And this is actually, as a fraud analyst, I go, oh, well, of course that's what's going on. Because what happens is that the banks have a set of incentives they like to give people, right? A home equity line of credit is just a way to turn your house into an ATM machine, a way to get you to borrow against your house. Banks make money by charging interest, so they try to get people to borrow money. They say, we'll give you $500 if you open a home equity line of credit. You don't have to use it or anything like that. Just here's $500. People say, all right, well, I'm never going to use it, but I'll take your $500. And so they open up this home equity line of credit and they do nothing with it. And they don't even check it because you know what? They haven't used it for anything. But at some point their bank account gets, their credentials to the online bank get compromised. And then people start hunting for these accounts and they figure out how to move money out of them. So you can see there's like one little test transaction coming out of this joint account. And there's some amount of transactions that are going into the joint account, but actually a lot of it is going from here into her checking account, and from the checking account to the joint account. And then from there, it's going into one or the other accounts that are controlled by Bob, either Bob's business or Bob's personal account. And from there, it's actually traded to China. Now, no single one of these account moves is on its own fraud. But when you look at the entire network, it's very clear what's going on, that this has been compromised. We have to go figure out whether or not Bob is a real person and has also been compromised. Probably want to freeze all the funds in this account and sort of go from there. But the takeaway here is not that someone's stealing money, because as we know, that's happening all the time. The takeaway here is, as an analyst, I can very quickly pivot through all this data and figure out what's going on. And there wasn't a single database query I had to issue along the way. There's definitely sort of a startup cost of getting all this data integrated, but once that happens, we're kind of in that Photoshop realm where we're trying to make someone look younger. Suddenly you can just go do, slapdash here, blur here, show me these accounts here, and you can figure out what's going on very quickly. So I was asked to tell sort of an anecdote from the history of the company. So I'll leave you with one little funny story which relates to this t-shirt. So this says hydrogen, and we name all of our releases after elements on my product team. And the way that this came up was that we were working on version 1.4 of our product. This was back in 2008. And we were shipping it to some intelligence agency, and they said, great, we've got your software, we're going to put it through security review, we'll get it out to the users as fast as we can. We said, oh, security review, how long does that take? And they said, it takes about 30 days. We're like, but there's people who are waiting for this. They kind of want to, they're like, that's policy. We said, okay, that's policy. That's how it goes. Small company, just want to get the software out there, fine, security review. So that's going through security review and getting deployed to the users, and we go back and we write some more code and we fix some bugs and we've got some new features, and we say, hey, guess what? Come back probably at that point, probably about 2 or 3 months later, and say, we've got version 1.5 and it's much better and it does all this great stuff, and we want to get it out to the users and say, oh, new version, we're going to have to put that through security review. We said, but you already put it through security review. They're like, sorry, that's policy. And we said, okay, well, bear with me here, but what if we shipped you version 1.4.1 as an update? And they went, oh, that's an update. That doesn't have to go through security review. Now, so we knew what we were going to do. Oh, well, here's version 1.4.1. But what happened was internally, we were already working on 1.6, right? And so 1.5 became 1.41 and 1.6 became 1.42, but now we were planning for doing what was going to be the new 1.5, but is that the new 1.5 or the old one? I don't know. And so we needed actually some sort of sequencing to our internal iterations that was divorced from external version numbers. And so we came up with the elements, and at some point I declared, well, if we're going to do the elements, we need to have t-shirts. And so we actually have an engineer that did his internship at Pixar. He's a bit of an artist, and he's built us a logo based on each one of these things for every release. He's actually about 8 or 9 releases behind now. We're way deep. We're probably up to element 43 or something like that at this point. Not being on the engineering team anymore, I'm not actually paying attention to exactly which element it is. Also, we've never renumbered since that time. So it's like the perfect defense against a problem that we no longer have. But we have these awesome t-shirts, right? And it's sort of been this unintended consequence, a wonderful unintended consequence that has built up some culture, which is, it gives us actually a private calendar. Right, so we had a bunch of interns. We had 150 interns this summer, and we had a big party for them at Peter Thiel's house up in San Francisco. We took them to the Xploratorium, and then we hung out with them and stuff. And I wore this shirt, and 3 different interns took my picture. They were like, oh, it's hydrogen. I've never seen one of those. And hydrogen especially is actually particularly rare, not in the universe, but in t-shirts. Because when we first did it, the only people who got the element shirts were the engineering team. Our team, there was 35 of us at the time or something like that. We were the only ones who got these shirts. So there's only 35 of these in existence. And by the time we got to lithium, the rest of the company's like, those are really cool. We want those, right? And so everyone gets one now. And so the first, I think lithium didn't go out, but the first 3 are very, very rare. And people were like, it becomes such a sort of a rare sort of piece of history that people wanted a picture of it, right? And these are sort of the lessons you learn as you go from 15 to 700 people. This culture grows up around you, and you have to shepherd it and keep it going to keep people motivated and working and excited in doing what they're doing. So that's really, there was one quote I wanted to leave you with that ties it all back together, right? And this is from Lick's paper, right? This goes back to the whole epic battle between intelligence augmentation and AI. It seems worthwhile to avoid argument with other enthusiasts for artificial intelligence by conceding dominance in the distant future of cerebration to machines alone. There will nevertheless be a fairly long interim during which the main intellectual advances will be made by men and computers working together in intimate association. And that's where we are right now. So that's all I have, and with that, I'm happy to answer any and all of your questions. Thank you very much.